You know, the preseason is just 2 days away. The Lions and Giants, as you all know, are taking joint practices and going to kick off their preseason game schedule this Friday. We're going to talk about that, the depth chart, the kicking battle, Goff, everybody else who's now in the mix, including Teddy Two Gloves at the quarterback position. We're going to dive into all that and maybe just a little bit more in today's Lions Talk Live. Well, greetings and salutations to everybody out there in YouTube land. I'm your host once again, Dan Thornton. I want to thank you all for joining us today, Wednesday, for Lions Talk Live. We're going to dive into a few topics, as we said. Before we get into that, if you haven't yet subscribed, please consider doing so. Also, I'd really like to try to get to, say, 80 to 100 likes in this video. So if you just take a second, hit that thumbs up. It helps us a ton. If you have any questions or comments or thoughts you want to add in, leave in the comments section below. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's Lions Talk Live. Teddy Two Gloves. Most of you know he was brought in just a couple days ago to the Lions. It's, to me, someone who's coached for, I don't know, coming this fall, 34 years, all sorts of different levels, all over the place, been a general manager, whatever. What can we say to you, the viewing audience, and everybody watching the Lions fan base or whatever it may be? What's this tell us? Well, here's what I would say. I think it's a first real strong indication. Brad, Holmes, Campbell have talked. They are saying this team is ready to win and win now. They're not thinking about 2025 or whatever the season may be, future seasons. They're thinking this season is a legitimate opportunity for the Lions to not just win the division, but to win a playoff game, to make a deep push and potentially go to the promised land, the Super Bowl, someplace the Lions have never been during the Super Bowl era. Yes, we all know the Lions won multiple championships in the 50s, etc., and they're still, believe it or not, one of the top 20 most celebrated teams in all NFL history as far as the number of championships. That's incredible considering what the last 50-plus years have been like for Lions fans. Teddy Bridgewater, we all know he's been a starter in this league. He's done this, he's done that, but he's at the point of his career where, let's face it, he's gone through some injuries. Teams no longer view him as a potential starter. So if he can come in, if the situation should arise where Goff has to go down or miss a game or two or whatever, that he can do things to keep the team moving in the right direction, and the direction is towards victories, division, and playoff victories. So, brilliant move if you want my opinion on what the Lions have done here. And us as fans, we should be, in my opinion, horribly excited by this because it means the Lions hierarchy truly believe in where this team is going. With that being said, was in a chat with a bunch of people in Lions Nation Unite before the Teddy Bridgewater news came out. We all knew something was coming. For those of you who don't know, I've been in the journalism business, one capacity or another, since the late 80s, early 90s. I've been a sports reporter for over 20-plus years, editor, et cetera, et cetera. I've worked at Ford Field. I've even covered games at the Silver Dome. That's how long I've done this type of stuff. Photography on the sideline. I mean, I've been around long enough to develop a few friends. So when Micro Mike and Curtis Steele and all of us were talking about potential news stories that could be being held back from the media just a couple days ago before the Bridgewater signing, I did reach out to some of my friends still in the business. A couple of them had speculations about Bridgewater signing, but they said I could not pass it on. One friend, though, said the Lions are pushing hard for a trade. Crux of it is, to try to bring up to speed, it's that Young might be coming to Detroit in a trade. Chase Young might be coming to Detroit in a trade. It sounds like the Lions would offer a 5th-round pick conditional. It could elevate to a 3rd-round pick in 2025. It's also believed there would be a player on the Lions side put in with the deal. That player, it sounds like, could be Charles Harris. Will this come to fruition? I don't know. It sounds like the Redskins are wanting more, and I get that. You invested a 1st-round pick in this guy. Other than some injuries the last 2 years, he has been productive. Him opposite side of Aiden Hutchinson in Detroit, I think a lot of people would like that. But do the Lions want to give up more than what they're currently offering if this rumor is true? I wouldn't if I were them, especially since, you're on the last year of his contract. Again, you've got, a history of injuries over much of his rookie contract. So I wouldn't go overboard trying to acquire him. But if I could get him at the right price, especially a 5th rounder, hey, if you're really thinking of pushing to the playoffs, someone of his talent and his ability with further upside, because he is still fairly young, I'd say, hey, if I'm the Lions, I'm going for it. All right. Most of you know and probably saw the headlines yesterday about the Lions depth chart coming out. I don't really think there's any big real surprises out here. The only thing, as I scroll down here, that I did want to talk about just real quick is the cornerback situation. I think we all know Manuel Mosley hopefully will be back on the field the next week or so. It's my anticipation the Lions are just not forcing him in, letting that knee heal, strengthen, and let his physical self get right as well. He's been out for a while since that ACL tear. I think they're just being very cautious with him, knowing that he's been in the league a while. He's a known commodity. He knows what to do, but giving him every opportunity to get right and really restore trust in that knee. But the one thing I did want to point out to you, in my opinion, is the play of Starling Thomas. This kid, as we all know, has been here and making some news for himself since the day he was signed by the Lions. He's come in, OTAs, and now during preseason practices, etc., and really been standing out. I don't think he's going to end up being a starter this year. If he does, great. But I do think, and if you watch the Sunday live show, the Sarge Tony Libretto and I talked about this, it's quite clear this kid is doing enough to impress the Lions coaching staff where he's probably going to make the roster. And I think for the first time in eons, the Lions are going to have sound depth in the secondary. They've invested quite a bit, either in free agency or really hitting on some of these undrafted free agents like, Jerry Jacobs, et cetera. But the Lions secondary really could be a strength this year. And I think that strength will also help translate to more sacks from the front line, because I think they're going to have that extra half second, maybe second and a half to get home. And that, will make a difference between nearly getting sacks and getting sacks. I also think one will help the other. That front line's play, as they get more pressure on the quarterbacks, is going to lead to a lot more turnovers, interceptions, et cetera, from the Lions. So with that being said, let's transition now. You probably all read some stuff about the first day of the joint practices between the New York Giants and the Lions. Yes, it sounds like, if you believe all the reports, the Lions had their way with the Giants. They just steamrolled them. But today, Wednesday, seems to have been what you would probably expect if you've been an NFL fan for a while. The Giants made some adjustments. They went 7 for 7 on a lot of different drills, marching down the field. They scored some touchdowns. They recovered fairly well. And they also exposed some of the youth in the Lions, especially in the secondary and defense. Some of the adjustments they're making, they got a lot of new faces out there. Some of those guys, got shown up a little bit today, and that includes Thomas. But with that being said, let's move on to another note here. A year ago at this time, I was not a fan of the Lions cutting Riley Patterson as the kicker. I thought what he had did the year prior, there was no reason to get rid of him. Yes, I understand every team wants that big leg kicker that can hit them from 55, 60. I guess if you're Justin Tucker, 65 yards away. That's not what Patterson is, but what he is an incredibly accurate kicker. In today's kicking battle, he went 7 of 8. That's today being Wednesday. He only missed one, a 45-yarder from reports. And, to be fair, it wasn't a horrible miss. It just, unfortunately, didn't get home. But Badgley continues to perform well, so it'll be interesting to see what the Lions do the further we go on. I'm going to guess this we won't have any kind of real knowledge of who's going to go where with this, who's going to win the position, I guess, until we're about the last cuts. We'll see if that comes to pass, or the Lions decide to make a move sooner. If they do that, I guess it'd be my assumption they're doing it out of respect for both gentlemen, because that's going to give one of them a better chance to sign with somebody else. Badgley did very well last year. I don't think anybody could complain about his performance. But again, Patterson did well with the Lions the year before, and he followed that up with a pretty good performance in Jacksonville. So the Lions traded for him, but that trade is conditional. So really, if they end up cutting him, it's not really going to cost them too much. The last thing I'm going to talk about, and maybe a little bit over the top, but hey, you can hear me out here. If you go through the Lions Talk Live videos and you want to backtrack, you're going to see that the Lions, my prediction when we were 1-4, I said, hey, I think next year we're going to the Super Bowl. And to me, I thought that you could see enough pieces starting to gel, enough growth and development, especially from that young defensive core that came in last year. And then you look at the NFC, where they're at with things. Yes, all roads currently go through Philadelphia, and you could even argue through San Francisco. Dallas could make a charge. But I also think at the first time, really since the 70s, the Lions are in as good a position to challenge for the NFC as they ever probably have, and since the 50s or whatever. So what I'm going to say to you is this. I'm not a betting person, but I think we all need to embrace this season because I believe the Lions will make the Super Bowl this year. No, I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I see enough through training camp on top of what we saw a year ago and where I think especially a lot of these younger players are coming in and developing much faster than probably anybody predicted. I think the Lions are going to make that real push. The first part of that steps, though, is going to be Friday when they take on the Giants. I'm not going to be around to do a live broadcast of that. Most of you know, opening day, the Thursday night game against Kansas City, Sergeant Libretto and I are going to do a live broadcast from Main Street Pub on West Main in Kalamazoo. We are going to do a practice run during one of the preseason games, just for a half, just to test things out, work out the kinks, etc. If you'd like to come and cheer us on and be on the show during halftime, pregame, and postgame, please feel free to come on out. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment on this video, and I'll try to address them as quick as possible. All right, I won't keep you guys any longer, but I wanted to just hit you with some thoughts. I'm really hoping Thomas does make it and make a strong push because I think as a DB, this kid's got a very bright future. But look around the Lions. They've got a lot of young people that are starting to impress. The missile, Jack Campbell, I think is going to really, really fit in well. You see what Ancelotti's doing on the offside backer position, and he's playing at a high level so far in camp. We got to see it translate to the regular season, but you got Derek Barnes playing well. I think you get the point. We're pretty loaded on both sides. All right, well, you all take care, and we'll see you next time on Lions Talk Live.